Hello, and welcome to another special Zoom edition of BMI's Speaker Sessions. I'm Jessa Gelt, BMI's Executive Director of Creative, and today I'm extremely excited to welcome 11-time BMI Award winner, a 30-time Billboard charting songwriter-producer, 8 of which hit #1, and the Grammy-nominated Jason Evigan.
Wow, that was I didn't even know those. I didn't know those numbers.
We did our homework.
Dang, send those over. I could use that on my resume.
Yeah, we'll write your bio. We'll update your Wikipedia.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really excited to chat with you about pretty much everything, but I'll start simple. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I know the world, there's a lot of chaos happening, but I'm feeling good, feeling inspired. I'm about to go to Tulum on Tuesday, take a little baby moon. We're about to have a baby, so our first baby. So I'm going to take a little time off before that.
Well, that's like the best news I've heard all year. Congratulations
thanks.
to you, Victoria.
Thanks. Yeah, it's exciting.
Really exciting.
It's time.
Nice.
Yeah.
You've had your hands in so many different things, not only as a writer and producer, but also as an artist, an activist, an avid traveler. I'd love to hear a little bit about your general philosophy towards life and how that relates to your approach in writing and producing music. I told you I'd start simple.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, I think my general philosophy of life is, if you were to break it down to a nutshell, it's love others as you love yourself. I think that's like, if you could really break it down to that, I think that kind of takes, for me, that's always been my ideology of everything, and it's kind of like the golden rule, like, put yourself in their shoes, that kind of thing. Because I think we're all in this, on this boat together, and everyone's trying to survive and trying to, be they want to be the best version of themselves. And if you could help people be the best version of themselves, then the world would be a great place if everyone could do that for each other. So yeah, I think that, that carries over into the business side of things too. There's a lot, when it comes down to splits, when it comes down to, all that side of the business too. And, everyone being fair. And I think, there's definitely a lot of ego that goes into creativity. It just kind of naturally happens. So I think you constantly have to be checking yourself and kind of pulling back and watching it from like a bird's eye view. I think the invisible things are the most important things in life that we need to focus on, whether it's, love, your spirituality, friendships.
Yeah.
So, and music's an invisible thing, it's literally an invisible thing coming out of the speakers that's doing something emotionally to our body. So, remembering that is always kind of like it's cool. Like, we're playing with magic basically every time we make music, and we're infecting the airstreams with something. So it's like, what do we want to put out that's going to into the world? Are we going to, there's definitely songs I put out where I'm like, oh man, that definitely didn't help humanity move forward, sick hair. Then there's times where like, all right, cool. We shifted the airwaves in a way that's like helping the world a little bit,
With the energy that you bring to a track, and some of these components that you've mentioned, you're known for like your incredible production and distinctive sounds. How would you characterize your style or technique?
I don't really, that one's a hard one because there's so many different genres that I like, I think it's more like, for me, I've never really loved music that's just up the center. So I'm always going a little to the left or right of it, so I think that, if I'm working on a track that is like, if the melody and everything, if it's like a pretty straightforward, sort of, pop, down the middle sort of thing, I always try to take it a little left. And sometimes I go really far and then I have to pull it back into the center a little bit more. But I'm always trying to complement the song with, I'm always trying to take the listener to another, like some other world, some other place where they can really get like lost in that world, So I don't really know what I'm doing. I just kind of mess around and like, oh, that feels good. That makes me feel something. I always just try to feel something with whatever I'm making. So
A lot of intuition goes into it.
A lot of yeah, definitely a lot of intuition. And I will say that when I think about it too much, it usually turns out not being so great. You know, I feel like I was just thinking about this earlier. Like, you know, we have like our consciousness and then our unconsciousness, and I feel like in life, it's really great to be aware of your consciousness, to be able to, you know, to be a good person, to do all these things. But that I feel like for me with music, when I can really get into my unconscious state, like the flow state, whatever they call it, that's, I feel like, when the coolest stuff comes out for me. Because a lot of times if I'm in my conscious state, it's like, oh man, what would Max Martin do, or what would Ian Kirkpatrick do, or, you know, there's a few people who always like kind of go like with the producers that I like love and look up to, like. So I think a lot of times it's great to go back into that state when you're trying to fix a problem, because you're like, oh, here's some like tricks I've learned along the way. But yeah, like you said, your intuition, your kind of unconscious, that's the place where I love to hang out making music. But then that could definitely mess up the rest of your life, because you're just stuck in this like zone. You kind of, you're like, where were you for the past couple months? Oh, I was just in my cave.
Yeah, I mean, that flow state, I love the way you put that, because that resonates for me too. Because when you're in that state, your mind can't really think of anything else.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of a sudden, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, you forgot to eat. It's really like the flow state is actually incredibly meditative.
Very.
And it's like this other thing takes over. So to see that applied to music is really interesting. It's pretty cool.
And that's the, you know, that's the interesting thing about doing like songwriting sessions, or, you know, co-writes. I think it's really hard for people to get into that state and like, all right, let's write a song today. Like, you know, there's definitely moments where we do, like, I'll never forget, we were in Jamaica one time. It was like me and I think Nate Cypher and Teddy Geiger. And I remember we were writing, we were in a zone, and we all like, after we were finished, we were like, where did we just go? Like, we all felt it. We all felt like we had left the room, and like we were in some other place for the past couple hours, and we came back. But I think it's a little bit more rare. And that's why I love, after, you know, there's definitely moments where, you know, like we're in the zone with that, but I feel like there is a bit of a science happening in the room with co-writes, but it's really fun after you kind of, the song's there, cool, we got a great song, and then you can go into that zone when you're on your own and get lost in it a little bit more.
For when you're walking into a session, how do you get into that right mental space? Is there like an essential component that feels tangible that you can bring in with you?
You know, I think what it comes down to is a lot of times, you know, if you're a songwriter and you've sat with yourself and played, you know, on the piano or guitar, and you just write a song by yourself, it's definitely easy to get into that zone. Like, you go there and you're kind of, you know, when there's other people around, it's a little bit like, oh, you know, you want them to get their idea. So what I've learned to do is, if I see someone's like got an idea, like I want to like push them to get it out so they can go into that zone, and I can kind of join them in there. So they can kind of, you know, because if it's a lot of like, everyone's like, oh, what about this idea? What about this idea? It's harder sometimes. So I think, you know, sometimes I'll be the one who's in that state. So I'll just kind of go and I'll be in my world, and, you know, people are kind of helping me in that zone, help craft where I'm at. And I think, but it's taken a long time for me to realize that, okay, I need to help other people get in that zone too, and like let them be in that zone and not try to do all the ideas. Like, if this person's in a flow, like let's all ride their wave for a minute, you know? Because there's something that happens when you're playing guitar, or you know, like I said, on the keys, and you're kind of like in your zone, like helping them get the best out of them. You know, and that's what I've been sort of like learning. That it's a really important thing to get the best songs, because that's, I think, where the good stuff comes from. You know.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, okay, to get into your credits a little bit, for some backstory, you and I are both from LA, and we both grew up in the Valley.
Yeah, look at Valley boy for life.
818.
818.
And I remember going to one of the early shows for After Midnight Project, the band that you were in for many years.
You went to one of those?
I was at Warped Tour. I think you guys played a few, but I was at maybe the first one. But I was thinking about it, and, you know, you being the frontman for a signed alt rock band, how did that help or influence you as a writer-producer today, just in your music or navigating the industry?
Yeah, you know, I think it's so important for people to like have bands at a young age, because at a young age, you're literally like running a small business. You know, like, you know, you're working with, you know, for us, it was 4 or 5 other guys who are all creatives, who are all like, you know, their minds are everywhere out there. So you kind of like at a young age learning how to reel people in, like how to get people to come to band practice, how to get people to be inspired at band practice. Like, you know, because at the time, for most, I'd say 90% of After Midnight Project stuff, I was just writing it and then I'd demo it and I'd present it to the band and we work on it as a band together. But it was kind of like, you know, that kind of carried over into this world where you're like, I have an idea, or, you know, as a producer, I think that's why you see a lot of producers came from the band world,
Right.
because they knew how to work in a room with a bunch of people and, you know, how to actually get product out of that, you know, cause it's, yeah, I think that definitely, I give a lot of credit to being in bands my whole life for how to finish songs, how to keep the morale up in the room, how to like get the best out of people, and also just how to like run a little business at a young age. I was just, all right, guys, we got to flyer every high school. We would go out every night and flyer every single locker and go down to Sunset and pass out flyers. Oh, this band's playing tonight. We got to go out there and network. We got to do, you know, and I remember I was 16 years old walking around Sunset Boulevard and I was like I'd pass a flyer to someone's like, hey, I'm a A&R at Capitol Records. We'd love to check you guys out. You know, like that stuff just happens by like, I was hustling at a super young age, you know?
Right. By just being out. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it brought me back to like the intern days for me. And it's the same thing, no matter what side of the industry one wants to like break into, is really being able to get out there early on and be able to make mistakes,
yeah,
learn from them, and then be able to transition quickly.
yeah.
That's
like a lot of, I get text messages or DMs and messages every day like, hey, I'm a new songwriter. Any tips? I'm like, just get out there. Like it's like there was no like science to what I did, except for I really put myself out there for many years. I mean, I was signed to like 3 labels, 4 actually, dropped by all of them. You know, I mean, on paper, I should have given up a long time ago, you know, like I'll never, you know, I got married with $200 in my bank account. You know, I was like, didn't look good. Didn't look like it was good, going good. And then I saw an opportunity that came like, hey, do you want to come do some additional programming stuff on some Disney tracks? You have cool programmers. Like, all right, cool. I like making music. So, but you know, you have to be a little delusional too to make it. I think you have to be a little crazy. You know, you have to be able to like get shut down. I mean, I still to this day get turned down like every single day. I'll send a song out, not right. Okay, cool. On to the next. It doesn't affect me anymore. Like, you know, I feel like when I first wrote my first song and someone didn't like it, it was like, you don't like me? You know, what? And now it's like, cool. It's like, boom, just keep going. Like, and you're going to, you know, if you like it and you believe in it, just keep going. Cause like, you know, I don't know. It's crazy when I look back at how many times in my life I've been like rejected and turned down and how it hasn't destroyed me as a human. You know?
In those times of rejection, to know that there's still nothing else that you'd rather be doing means that you're on the right path.
Yeah, totally.
Like when the car's getting impounded and you can't pay rent and you're like, well, I'm still going to make music. That's exactly how you know you need to keep making music.
Yeah. And it's cool I think as like writers and producers, opposed to being an actor, for instance, you know, I have a lot of family and friends who are actors and like they'll spend all this time on going up for an audition. They go for it and they don't get it, but they have nothing to show for it. So at least I have like catalogs of songs and like these things that I've made. It's like, you know, as a painter, you get your painting, no one ever buys it. You still have this art that you made, you know? So I can imagine it must be harder for actors or people who can't necessarily walk away with their art after they've, you know, spent so much time on it. You know what I mean? That makes sense?
Yeah.
Unless you do a feature film and you're like, ever see Titanic? Yeah, that's me. that feels probably pretty good, I bet, you know?
Yeah, I imagine it would.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you have a lot of songs in back catalog and that things would take time and that, you know, rejection is part of the process. And I believe we originally met around the time that your single Heart Attack with Demi Lovato had just hit the charts. Would you say that was the song that changed everything for you? Was that your first big radio hit?
Yeah, definitely. I remember we made the song, Sean Douglas, Nikki Williams, Mitch Allen, and I was just into like dubstep music. So I was like, oh, I made this crazy dubstep bridge and the production's all dubsteppy and it was cool. And they're like, oh, Demi Lovato wants to record this song. And I was like, who's Demi Lovato? Cool. I was so not in that world.
Yeah.
But yeah, then like, you know, next day it's like number 1 on iTunes. I'm like, what does that even mean? I had no idea what that, like that was a big deal. I was like, oh, cool. Like, cause I didn't even stream music at the time. I was still like buying records. I was like, oh, number 1 on iTunes. And then
did it happen that quickly that you guys
that song
got to Demi?
No, the song sat around for a long time actually. And a lot of different people recorded it. That was like my introduction to the whole, like, this person cuts it. Oh, it didn't happen. You know,
how did you stay focused during that time when there were probably then a lot of letdowns or ups and downs that like, this was going to get cut. This isn't going to get cut.
You know, I've always, and even now it's like I get text messages every day from my manager, like, hey, this song is reaching number 5. And it's like, cool. I'm just excited to make the next. I love just making the creation process of it. Mm-hmm. So the other stuff to me is never as rewarding. It feels nice when someone's like, hey, we love your song, we're going to put it out. It feels great. Someone likes my art, but nothing's as satisfying as when you like make that song. Like when we first made Heart Attack and you're listening back, you know, just to the demo at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so good to hear your song that you made. So for me, I've never gotten lost in the sauce with like the people cutting it. And, you know, you definitely have moments where you're like, God, what's happening with the song? It's so frustrating. But like the second you sit down, you make a new song, you're like, this is the best song I've ever made. You know? So you're just always like I'm like chasing the high of the next song, you know? I'm like a crackhead out here with music. So.
Oh, I love that. In thinking about how you described your style earlier, being like a little more left, a song like Chains by Nick Jonas comes to mind for me. Because at the time, that was a very different sound than what people were used to hearing at radio. How does risk play a part in your creative process? Like, how do you play into that?
Yeah, I guess I never like look at it as risk. I guess, you know, for me, that song was interesting because we were, you know, Amar basically had most of the song on acoustic guitar, and it kind of sounded like this bluesy sort of thing. And I was like, honestly not like loving it at the moment. I was like, okay, it's cool. It's cool. Like, how do we make this? And I go to, at the time, especially I was going to a lot of electronic music festivals. And I remember all these snare drums, like these are like these kind of sonar sounding things. And I was like, how can I like get this sound into pop music? And so I was like, what if we take away all the guitars in the beginning, and just do it over this? Yes, I wasn't thinking of it as risk. I was just thinking of it as like, just like exciting. Okay, how do we push this to like another level, you know? But the risk aspect of it, well, I mean, here's what happens, honestly. A lot of, if I go back and listen to my catalog or songs that have never come out, like I've definitely messed up a lot of songs with trying to go too crazy on production. So there's a big risk with that, you know? And then, but you know, it's kind of like if you don't take chances, you know, you never, you know, I don't know if there's a saying with it, but you got to take chances to get some big wins, I guess. I don't know.
Right. Sure.
You know,
I mean,
but, yeah. I definitely, sorry songwriters out there. I've ruined a lot of your songs. So maybe one day I'll go back and try to restore them.
I want to expand a little bit earlier when you said working across multiple genres. You've had huge hits with Maroon 5, What Lovers Do, Girls Like You, It Was Always You. And, you know, you approach different projects from Dua Lipa, Jason Derulo, Keith Urban, Rufus Du Sol. The list goes on and on. How do you approach different projects when working with bands and artists in different genres? How are they different for you?
I think each project it depends on, you kind of have to go into the psyche of the artist. If you're working with the artist on it, you know, a lot of times I'll just pitch songs and they'll work for different, you know, genres. But, you know, for instance, Rufus Du Sol, I'm in that world now. And it's a totally different world than if you go work on a Dua Lipa song. You know, it's I mean, put it this way, we spent 4 days working on one bass line for one song, you know, or we'll spend 2 or 3 weeks coming back and re-recording just one vocal. So it's, when you're working like the band mentality is very different than working with, say, like, you know, a pop artist who, and that's not to take away anything. Like Dua knows exactly who she is, and like if she's not liking something, she's like, move on. But it's like quicker, and you kind of like, you don't have them for as much time to record the stuff. You kind of get it, and it's like this it's a faster moving process. But like it really, I think it's also, you have to listen to a lot of different, I really genuinely listen to electronic music. I genuinely listen to pop music. I like some country, not all of it, but I do listen to some of that. Like, so your palette has to be pretty wide.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're making the song, you're like, oh, you flash back to, oh, this could be like that song I heard back in 1996, and you kind of use that as a reference or whatever it is. You kind of are, your brain is like a sponge, but it retains all this stuff, and it's like this little galaxy of things you got to pick from. Like, oh, wasn't there this one Madonna song or something that had a crazy flute in it? Let's pull that up and be like, oh, there, whatever it is. So you just kind of have to roll with like the mindset of the artist that you're working with and try to go into their world and help navigate inside there,
Mm-hmm.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, above anything else, for me, I'm a music fan first. And it sounds like when going into create as like a writer producer, it's being a fan of music.
Yeah.
First and foremost is really what's going to expand the knowledge of, the history.
Totally.
Before going in and either not recreating it, but keeping the momentum.
Yeah. And also I think what's important too is to help create a vision for an artist as well. Like sometimes they're like, cool, we're on our next album. We did great the last album. Like, where are we going to go next? And if you sit and you're like, oh man, I could really imagine this artist going this direction. So, there's a risk, you take a risk. Like, I have this idea, and they could either be like, oh, that's an insane idea, I don't understand it. Or like, dang, let's go, let's try going there. I remember that's actually with Physical, Dua Lipa. I kept hearing that, like, her deep voice she has over the ding 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 ding, like that kind of Knight Rider driving, that sound. I remember I had it in the back of my mind, ready to kind of play for them. So that was like a risk I took that it worked out,
Right. And that was by understanding the artists that you were working with.
Yeah, like I knew she wanted to go more in the 80s. They were like referencing Madonna stuff and different references they were giving us. And, for me, like my favorite part of the 80s was that ding, 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 that kind of pulsing montage music, like Karate Kid, all that stuff. So I was like, how do we do that in like a new way?
When you're getting treatments like that for what someone might be looking to do, how do you battle comparison or requests to recreate hits and keep yourself inspired?
As long as they're not referencing songs like, like, oh, we got to get let's do something like 24K, like whatever's like the number one song right now.
Right.
That always kind of like rubs me. I'm like, guys, come on, like okay, then you just want to hit. But like if they give, if A&Rs give, for instance, like I said, like Madonna meets, whoever else, like people that created worlds for themselves. I think that's always a good, I always love hearing when those are the pitches where like when it's like a world they want to create, opposed to like, oh, let's make a hit song like this, because that's even, I mean, dude, for me, it's like after I have a hit song and there's like 2 years of everyone coming in, they're like, well, hey, let's do something like, maybe like Girls Like You. Or it's like, okay, it's like, I'm going to try to recreate. I can't recreate that. I was like, I didn't even think it was going to be a hit song. How do you, it's like,
yeah, it's catching lightning in a bottle twice.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's certain sonics that you can like, that last a certain amount of time that you can try and use them a couple of times, but to try to recreate a hit is, I think people are good at that. I don't know if I am. I think there are people actually who are really good at that, and I can't do that. I don't know why. I can't. I've tried.
You mentioned creating a universe, and when I first heard the song "Haya" by Elephant Heart, for me, that created a universe. I tapped right into what that was. And Elephant Heart's your artist project with your incredibly talented wife, Victoria. And you guys have played many festivals together, have an Apple campaign. What does this project mean to you creatively, and how is it different? Can you talk a little bit about the universe that you two have created together?
Yeah. Elephant Heart it's definitely, it's kind of like, it's like if you have like a room of paint and you're like, okay, cool, I got to use all this paint right here for my my profession and my pop role. And then there's like this whole wall of other colors that are like, dang, I don't get to use those too often. Let me just take those and just throw them around and like squirt them everywhere. I feel like that's kind of what Elephant Heart has been for me, where it's like, it's really opened up the door to be able to express myself like in a way that like I really don't always get the chance to. And working with Victoria, who she's never made music professionally, she's never even really recorded herself or produced or anything, so she doesn't have the rules, the boundaries that a lot of us have, because we've learned so much in navigating through the business. So it's cool where I'm like, oh, we should go back to the verse here, and she's like, why? And I'm like, oh, maybe because I learned that somewhere. I don't know why. I'm like, yeah, let's just ride it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like with the Rufus guys too. It's the same thing where it's like, I naturally was like, hey, we got to go back to this part right here, where they're like, no, let's just ride it for 4 more minutes. It's like, okay, all right. Yeah. And then you go see it live. Like, thank God we didn't cut that part shorter, So it's kind of like, it's really about like taking someone into this world of music and letting them get lost in there. But each song it's not just about getting lost as well. Each song has a deep spiritual meaning. A lot of songs are, about like our relationship, what we're going through, but mainly it's about like this relationship, the up and down between like God and us, and like listening to that voice, like the song called When You Say Go, or like High, like You Take Me High. That's about that. It's like, and we try all these other drugs and do other things to try to get us to this place, but nothing really takes us as high as that moment. Like when we're in that full alignment. So there's definitely, there's an undertow that's pushing for the whole project, that is that like that spirit of that. But it's so fun because there's no boundaries with it, and that's what I love. I get excited when it's like, okay, well, it's Elephant Heart time. We get to make something just out there.
Yeah, definitely. And I imagine since you guys travel so much and experience different cultures, that definitely influences the creative process too.
Yeah, totally. I mean, all the songs we've sampled sounds from all around the world, and we bring them into there. There's I'd say every song, like When You Say Go, for instance, another song. Actually, even Haya too there's Indian samples, there's Japanese samples, like koto. There's samples from all around the world. So we kind of, it's like a melting pot of sounds that we just, like, it's so inspiring when you go to a different country and you're hearing these different rhythms you've never heard before, and then you come back home like, oh, let me put these inside of this music.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. You both are very driven in your activism too. Can you talk a little bit about the nonprofit Picture This, the work that you and Victoria do with that?
Yeah. Activism. I never thought of it as activism. That's cool. Like activism. Yeah. We're definitely, it's, we travel lots of different countries in like Southeast Asia, and we just kind of went around and loving people and, getting to know their culture, and no real agenda, just to like love on people. And if people needed something, we'd help them out. And a really organic thing, we'd bring backpack full of coloring books, and anytime we'd see a kid around, we just like go play with them, and then their family would invite us in. And before you know it, we have like this whole, we're getting to go into their world. And so then we did that for a few years, and we were on our way to Thailand again. And we were like, let's go to the Philippines, and like, let's just go there and kind of live it up, and, do like the whole, like more resort vibe, have like a really nice thing, and then go, because usually in these other places we'll stay in like villages and, like more in their lifestyle, and not just like going as a, the American in the nice place with all the service, So, but we did want to go to the Philippines. Like, let's just have a nice relaxing thing for a while. But right before we went there, we found out Typhoon Yolanda happened, which was devastating, wiped the place out. And we were like, we can't just not go. We were going to go there and be like a consumer, basically. We can't just not go. So let's go there and let's see where we can help. So we went there, and my sister's friend, he's like the Rambo of the Philippines. This guy, he's like first call for like, I guess Red Cross calls him for like tactical planning. He's like this like kind of underground militia dude who, I don't know if militia is the right word. he's basically like, Red Cross calls him for plans of how to help everything and when stuff goes down. So he took us, and it's funny. He was actually really excited to just like relax too. He's like, oh, we get to relax, and we're like, no, we want to go in, like we want to, because he had just been pulling people out of trees and body. It was like devastating, the stuff that he'd seen. But he goes, there's, you can't go into the main area, but there is this other little island that got hit really hard and no one's helping them. I could take you over there. We can drop off some toys. So like, oh, okay. So we go there and dropped off some stuff. And then, actually my back was like, I actually didn't go the first. I was on another island because I pulled my back and I couldn't walk. So Victoria, my sister, went, and they were gone all day. They came back. They're like, oh my God, it was amazing. We fell in love with this little village. We're going to go back tonight. They're throwing a party for us. We're going to go back there tonight. So I'm like, all right. It's like waddle, So you go back and instantly fell in love with these kids. They're like, the kids basically run. It's this place called La Hala. It's a little fishing village, and they like run the village. It's all children running around. And when we were leaving, it was just like they were crying and we were crying. And it was like this crazy moment that, we weren't even supposed to go to the Philippines for this sort of philanthropic thing. And Victoria promised, she goes, I promise you I'll see you next year. And she goes, every time you look up at that North Star, oh my God, it makes me want to cry thinking about it.
Yeah. I'm getting emotional.
Yeah. No, she said, when you, every time you look up at that North Star, just know we see the same star and we're thinking about you. And I'm sitting there like, dang, this is some big promises you're making right here,
Yeah.
And but she stuck to her word. And so we made a little, this, we're like, she's like, how do we figure out how to stay in touch with every kid in this island? So what we do, we came up with the idea of a pen pal program that we do. We pair up kids in America with the kids all in this village. And we coordinate all the mailing, and they can send gifts back and forth, letters. So it started off as that, but we've been going back every year for almost 7 years now. And we've helped bring electricity. We're helping, with giving jobs, and so we've kind of like adopted this little village as like just like our family, and it kind of it starts off as a pen pal program, but it's turned into something way more. We're building. We have a whole thing now with because the island's pretty dirty too, because they throw plastic around everything. So now we have these eco bricks. So each kid gets oh, you froze. Yeah. So each kid, if for every bottle they collect, they stuff the bottle with plastic and trash. And you get like a certain amount of pesos per each bottle. And what we're doing is we're building a new house out of the eco bricks. Wow. We learned it from like the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation. You could build these houses out of just trash, basically. So it's so we're doing that. We're going to go back there. They've collected, I think, almost like 30,000 bottles already. Wow. So it's wild. So
incredibly rewarding work.
Yeah, it's rewarding, and Victoria definitely she spearheads the whole thing and spends a lot of the time with it. And I wish I was able to do more. I'm always working, but then when I go out there, I'm like, I want to stay out here. I don't want to go back, But it's definitely a special thing that it's just a little organic thing that happened, and it might spread to more places. But for now, that's the main spot,
Oh, it's so nice hearing about that. It's a really beautiful organization, and it's an amazing opportunity that goes both ways.
Yeah. And it teaches a lot of the kids here in America too, which is great. Like it's surprising to see like some of the kids here, they'll give their favorite toy and they'll write a message. This is my favorite toy, but I want you to have it. It's just like, oh, it's great. It's really cool. It's really cool to see what the little hearts changing around the world, so.
Yeah. Well, stuff that truly, really matters.
Yeah.
And it's inspiring on so many different fronts.
Totally.
Yeah. So you're going to be traveling over the next, few weeks for a little bit through the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
What are you most excited about beyond that? Or is there anything you can tease, upcoming projects that you're working on?
Yeah. There's a lot of, I'm excited about the RUFUS DU SOL album. That's going to be great. I'm excited about some, Trevor Daniel. We have some cool stuff that we're doing together. Maroon 5, Justin Bieber. There's a bunch of cool projects that, even the Jonas Brothers, not even the Jonas Brothers. We spent a lot of time last year working on the new album. They haven't put any other stuff out yet, but there's some really good stuff on there that I'm really excited about. There's a lot of cool stuff. It's all kind of waiting. People are like waiting to put stuff out. I'm like, let's get it out. Come on. Yeah.
Finish the year strong and come into 2020 strong. It's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming to 2021, right? Jeez.
2020. Yeah. Did I get my years wrong? It's been a
2020. Like, we're not going back into 2020.
No. We're not going back. We're going forward. We're pushing forward.
That would be so dark if, like, when the ball drops, it says 2020. It's like, no! Groundhog's Day. Oh my gosh.
Can you imagine? No, I don't even want to joke about that.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you. It's been such an incredible opportunity to get your insight and hear your philosophy on the creative process, on the world. And I have to be honest, your kindness and your heart radiates throughout your music. And I'm so happy to have spent a little bit of time with you today.
Aw, thanks. I'm like really emotional right now. Like everything. Like,
I am too.
This call has got me feeling like, let me see it in the light, but I'm like teary-eyed over here.
I know. I have like one tear.
Thanks. That means a lot. That means a lot. Yeah. I've always got that energy from you every time I see you. You and Barbara both. You guys are like just the kindest people on the planet. So you guys radiate that as well. So thanks.
Thank you so much. And lastly, a big thank you to everyone for watching as well.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. If you stuck it out through the cerebral conversation of how my mind works. Like, this guy's crazy.
It's awesome though. Tap in a little bit into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jason, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Travel safe.
All right.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.